Do you notice I have my chip chart? Brand new. Now I can guarantee a higher quality vlog experience. Hello, internet denizens. I know the burning question all of you want me to answer, and that is, can Apple's Pages substitute for Adobe's InDesign? Stay tuned. Now, normally, I wouldn't be comparing Apple's word processing tool Pages against something like Adobe's InDesign. I mean, they're really not the same thing. I don't really need the power of InDesign anymore, but I want to see what kind of typographic tools and capabilities Apple is offering in Pages. And the impetus for this video is actually the latest update to Pages, which has introduced two very, very interesting features. And one is master pages and also being able to flow text between text columns. So let's dive into it right now and see how Pages performs as a desktop publishing substitute for InDesign. First thing we're going to do is just start Pages and grab a blank page. Now, the default in Pages is word processing mode, which makes perfect sense because 99% of the people out there use it as a word processor, and it's a fairly good word processor. First thing I'm going to do is convert this to a page layout. So now this is going to behave more like a desktop publishing program. I also want to see the thumbnails. So this looks an awful lot like a desktop publishing program, except one of its failings right off the bat is that it does not have any kind of pasteboard, which is kind of a drag, but that's not insurmountable. The next thing I'm going to do is change the measurement. Now, default Pages uses centimeters. Don't know why. I don't use inches. I use points. It's because I'm a desktop publishing guy. That's what I'm used to. I'm used to points and picas, and there are 6 points to a pica. There are 12 picas to an inch and 72 points to an inch. So remember that. There will be a test later. Because I'm used to points and picas, I don't know, it gives me kind of a flexibility that is different from thinking about things in terms of inches. Because, for instance, the margins I want on this page, most people default to 1/2 inch. And I find that just a little bit too big. So by making it a little bit smaller, I think it makes it a more elegant page. So I'm going to use 24 points, which is a little bit less than 1/2 inch. But first I'm going to need my ruler. So I'm going to bring my ruler up and I'm going to bring my first margin up at 24 point. Now, I'm going to do about the top margin, 24 point. So let's do that. But now we've come to the first problem with Pages. There's no numerical way of putting in these guides. So I need to calculate, well, where the heck is, 24 points on this side? Well, it's whatever the measurement of the width of the page minus 24 is, which off the top, I don't know what it is, which is why I've got this little spreadsheet. So my left margin, so page width in points is 612 points. Page height is 792 points. So I'm going to subtract 24 from 612, and that comes to 588. So I know that this margin here is 588. So I'll do that. And then my bottom margin here is going to be 768. So I'm going to grab a ruler there, 768. There you go. So those are my guides, and that's my margin. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I don't want this top header. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't need it. And I'm going to keep the bottom one because I want to number the pages, but this is too high. Again, it's too horsey. I don't like that kind of space there. So I need to move this down. So I'm going to insert the page numbering right off the bat. So I'm going to make this 24 points. And then, as you can see, it's now lined up with the margin there. But I'm not going to have text running all the way there. I want my text I'm going to eyeball this. Now, normally, this would be part of some super deluxe grid in InDesign and, 12 over 14 or 12 over 16 grid, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that. I'm just trying to use Pages to duplicate a desktop publishing experience. I don't need it to be perfect. I just want it to look good, which you can really do very easily in Pages. The next thing I need to do is create my grid. Now I'm going to create a 3-column grid and a 2-column grid because I want this to have the most flexibility when I'm building my document here, each of the subsequent pages. So what I need to do is find out where my columns are going to be. Now I have found the easiest way to do this is to just throw down a text block here and fill in with text. And so I need some useless text in here. So I'm going to grab what is called lorem ipsum. So I'm going to copy that. You can get the lorem ipsum, go to the lorem ipsum generator on the internet and get text that you can use to just dump in as you need. So there it is there. Now I'm going to go to my formatting. I'm going to go to layout and I'm going to select 2 columns. Now again, the default I find really horsey. I don't want that. So I'm going to just double click on the gutter there and I'm going to go for 18 points, which is nice and elegant. And then so this makes it really easy for me to just very quickly put some guides. Again, I don't care if it's perfect or not. I just need it to look decent. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is make this into a 3-column. So now it's really easy to put the guides there. So now I've got all my, pretty much my entire grid. Now I'm going to go and edit my master pages and I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to add my text to this, my text blocks to this. So, and format my text here so I have my proper style. So my body copy, I'm going to make this very, very simple, very fast. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in my text block here and I'm going to shape it to the column, and you'll see why I'm doing this ahead of time. This is one of the idiosyncrasies of Pages which I really don't like, and this is the only way that I can think of overcoming it. And what I'm going to do now is stylize the default text in this column block and this block. So I want it's going to be Helvetica Neue. I'm going to just leave it the way it is. I'm going to take this down to 9-point type. I want a paragraph space of 6 points between paragraphs. Keep it left justified. That's about all I need. And then I'm going to update this style there. So now, and I can take a look at what it's going to look like here. Put in my lorem ipsum, and I'm going to apply the text. And so there we go. Now, in typesetting, you either put a space in between paragraphs or you do indents. You don't do both, just so you know. So there we are. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is just duplicate this text block. So there we go. There's my 3-column master page. And I'm going to rename this to 3col. Now I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to make this my 2-column master page. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to move this over to there. And now I've got my 2-column master page. And I'm going to rename this to 2col. I'm finished my master pages here. Now, one feature I will turn on late in the process. I'm not going to do it right now, but you can do facing pages in this system also, and I'll talk about that at the very end. I'm going to turn on hyphenation. There's my first page with all these wonderful margins, and you're going to see the first problem that I have with the latest version of Pages, because I'm not going to delete this to begin with. Because if I add a page and I want my 2-column page, all my margins are gone. What happened to them? Apple, why can't you keep the margins on every single page? it drives me crazy. So that's why you create these text blocks, because that's how you can tell where your stuff is. First thing I'm going to do, let's say, is put in my text, and I'm going to style it using the format. But I want this to flow to this column. So this is pretty cool. So now I'm going to just click at the top here, click in this column, click on the top there, and now it flows. One of the really interesting features of this version of Pages is that I can actually have multiple threads. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some graphics. And you can add EPS files. In this case, I'm just going to add a PNG. Again, if I add it to there, it'll make the text disappear. I have to select it, put it there. And the columns, the built-in columns themselves, act like margins, which makes life a little bit easier. It's still a pain in the bum. And I'm just eyeballing things. Again, this is not a substitute for InDesign. I just want to get something done, and I'm going to rag it. Now, one of the things that you need to know is that it's whatever's on top that rags, not at the bottom. If I send this to the back, then we lose that. The other thing that, again, because it's not perfect, and if I want to get this fixed, I don't care about trying to update the graphic. I'm just going to make this column a little bit smaller, and everything seems to work. So I've got that page sort of in shape, and what I need to do is add a picture. So I'm going to just drag a picture in there. Automatically wrap this, and again, there you go. This works super fast. I'm not going to worry about widows and orphans here. I can change, obviously, the spacing around what I'm working on, and there you go. And I can just add another page, make this one a 3-column. I'm going to add some text there. I'm going to join these two together. So these are joined. I'm going to stylize this based on the body copy. But this third content block, I'm going to do something a little bit different with this text block. I'm going to show you the formatting capability of Pages. I like this feature. I like this feature a lot. I'm going to put our usual text in there. I'm going to grab this and make sure that it's our body copy. Now, I'm going to increase the text inset. You'll see why. Just make it 12 there. And I am going to have a fill, a color fill. We'll make it gray. And I'm going to make a border, a line. That's a bit too much there, 2-point line. So the one thing I can do with this now is grab this and instantly turn this into a text box style, which is pretty cool. So if I create another page, I can duplicate this page, but I can maybe, I'll go here, and then there's my text. So I'm going to grab that, and then I can just style that text box very, very quickly this way. So again, you can do some very, very simple, quick things with Pages. And now I'm going to just get rid of that. So another way of approaching this is we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of these 2 columns here. And we could just add a text block there. Fill it with text, style the text the way that we want, and just change the columns. We could do that very easily. I want to bring this to the front, and if I select that, there you go. That's a quick way of doing what I just did with the double columns. And for the most part, I use this more than I use the multiple column trick that I showed you, but it still works quite well. I'm going to change the gutter here. again, go explore Pages. It will satisfy, I think, a lot of your desktop publishing needs. And finally, one of the really cool things about this version of Pages is that you've got facing pages support with a caveat. So I'm going to click on Document here, and you just click on Facing Pages, and wow, this looks like a real desktop publishing program. Holy crapola. Wow, this is amazing. Isn't that cool? Oops. So I'm going to reduce the size of this. So I forgot to add my page number. And I can rearrange pages very, very quickly, just like a desktop publishing program. This is brilliant. However, if I turn off facing pages, it turns off here in the column, but it doesn't turn off here, which still works okay, but I think this is confusing. It still prints correctly. And then the other thing with Apple's version of facing pages is that these aren't really spreads. So if I want to grab a picture here, it's not a spread. So if Apple could just make those changes, then this would be a fun and very useful desktop publishing program. So hopefully this desktop adventure has been a useful exercise for all of you out there in desktop publishing land. Till next time, Internet denizens, so long.